If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. OJ 25 is a Core TV original true crime series. The 25 episodes look back at the world-famous OJ Simpson murder case some 25 years later, as the show, of course, was released in 2020. The show relives the trial using Core TV's extensive library featuring every minute of the double murder trial. The show encapsulates a week's courtroom action in chronological order, which of course took place in 1995 in Los Angeles. The trial started on January 24, 1995, until the verdict was read on October 3, 1995. OJ 25 includes exclusive new interviews with numerous trial participants from multiple vantage points, ranging from Los Angeles police detectives, attorneys, legal experts, and friends and relatives on both sides of the courtroom. Among those who discussed the trial in OJ 25 are Simpson defense attorneys Alan Dershowitz, F. Lee Bailey, and Sean Holley, LAPD detectives Mark Furman, as well as lead detective Tom Lang, LA County and Simpson's case prosecutor Bill Hodgman, victim Nicole Brown Simpson's sister Tanya Brown, the father and sister of victim Ron Goldman, namely Fred and Kim Goldman. There's also an interview with OJ's former friend, also policeman Ron Shipp, amongst some journalists as well. The show is hosted by former Los Angeles prosecutor and legal analyst Roger Kosak. Kosak provided insights into the Simpson trial at the time for CNN as the network's legal analyst and went on to do the same role for ESPN. Kosak was a college classmate of Robert Shapiro, one of Simpson's lawyers, and was made privy to the defense strategies. Commonly dubbed the trial of the century, the double murder trial of Simpson, the college football phenom, who would even go on to win the Heisman Trophy in 1968, the highest award for a college football player, and would also go on to become an NFL Hall of Famer and popular movie and television personality. The trial riveted the world during its nearly 10 full months in 1995. In addition to the numerous dramatic courtroom moments, the trial was the most notable for its strong racial overtones, its impact on the judiciary system in the United States, and how it spurred Americans across the nation to openly discuss the issues surrounding domestic violence. As is well known, OJ Simpson, of course, was acquitted for the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman. The two were stabbed to death outside Brown's condominium in Los Angeles on June 12, 1994. Though prosecutors argued that Simpson was implicated by a significant amount of forensic evidence, he was acquitted of both murders on October 3rd. Commentators agree that to convince the majority black jury to acquit Simpson, the defense capitalized on anger amongst the city's African-American community towards the Los Angeles Police Department, which had a history of racial bias and inflamed racial tensions in major incidents 2 years prior. The trial is often characterized as the trial of the century because of its international publicity and being described as the most publicized criminal trial in history. Simpson was formally charged with the murders on June 17th. When he did not turn himself in at the agreed time, he became the subject of a police pursuit. TV stations interrupted coverage of the 1994 NBA Finals to broadcast the live coverage of the pursuit, which was watched by around 95 million people. Simpson was represented by the highest-profile defense team referred to as the Dream Team, initially led by Robert Shapiro and subsequently directed by Johnny Cochran. While the deputy district attorneys, Marsha Clark, William Hodgman and Christopher Darden, believed they had a strong case, the defense team persuaded the jury there was reasonable doubt concerning the DNA evidence. They contended the blood sample had been mishandled by lab scientists and that the case had been tainted by the LAPD misconduct related to racism and incompetence. The use of DNA evidence in trials was relatively new at the time, and many laypersons did not quite understand how to evaluate it. The trial was considered significant for the wide division in reaction to the verdict. Observers' opinions of the verdict were largely related to the ethnicity, and the media dubbed this a racial gap. A poll of the Los Angeles County residents showed most African Americans thought not guilty verdict was justified, while most whites thought it was racially motivated jury nullification by a mostly African American jury. Polling in later years showed the gap had narrowed since the trial. More than half of the polled black respondents expressed the belief that Simpson was guilty. In 2017, 3 jurors acquitted Simpson said they would still vote to acquit, while one said he would convict now. After the trial, Ron Goldman's father, Fred Goldman, filed a civil suit against Simpson. In 1997, the jury unanimously found Simpson responsible for the deaths of Goldman and Brown. The Goldman family was awarded damages totaling $34 million, the equivalent of $64 million today. But as of 2024, they have received only a small portion of that. After OJ Simpson died in 2024, a man by the name of John Dutton, a key witness who had refused to testify at the trial, broke his silence and said that Simpson was indeed at the scene when the murders occurred and had hired 4 gangsters from the Gambino crime family to kill Nicole and Goldman. Dutton had said he remained silent until Simpson's death because of threats he had received, though there is no evidence to prove these claims. Now, I recently came across this series on YouTube, and frankly I was quite blown away. Look, to say I have a macabre interest in the OJ trial would be an understatement. It does tend to fascinate me, not only from a criminalist aspect, but from a legal one as well, and also the further implications on society as a whole, not only within the United States, but in the world as we live in today. This trial was so much more than just a murder case. It was so much more than just a man who was well known, being accused of killing 2 people in the most vicious and vile manner. This was the trial that dealt with racism, that dealt with the celebrity culture, that dealt with the inherent mistrust of police around the world. And in many ways, even though it took place in 1995, it was a true reflection of not only the United States, but as the world as a whole. I found this documentary to be one of the best and most detailed documentaries I've ever seen. The series lasts 25 episodes, literally going week by week through the trial of the century, covering aspects that I never even knew that happened in the trial, showing you quick excerpts of almost all the witnesses that testified for the prosecution and for the defense. As a person who's fascinated in legal aspects and drama, this trial is absolutely fantastic to watch. Look, this is definitely not a show for everyone, albeit that I found each episode is paced exceptionally well, and what they do is highlight certain testimonies, intertwined with interviews with experts discussing the trial on that relevant week. If you're not interested in the nuances and intricacies of the legal system and just want a brief overview of the trial, then this definitely is not a show for you. For me, I find it amazing how you weave back and forth between the defense and the prosecution. The prosecution makes their case and you believe that OJ did it, but the defense then comes through and makes you have that reasonable doubt, even just for a second. Of course, now it is much easier to objectively look at the case in its entirety and see the DNA evidence that was put forward, as we have a greater understanding now of DNA evidence in this day. But of course, you have to take the trial into context. This was 1995. DNA was new. There was huge racial tensions within Los Angeles. OJ was this massive celebrity who had the most fantastic defense legal team ever imaginable, coming up with such realistic arguments and making you question reality. And the Los Angeles Police Department were inherently distrustful and did have racist agendas. Not to mention the prosecution, led by Marsha Clark and Christopher Darden, didn't try the case properly as they could have, making lots of errors, even most infamously asking OJ to try on the gloves that were found at his residence in Rockingham and at the murder scene at Bundy. Even the trial's judge, Lance Ito, could be viewed as biased to one side or the other. But all in all, nothing like this had ever happened in history. This trial was unprecedented. And the mere fact that we've actually got the privilege of being able to watch almost every single minute of the trial is just, well, fantastic. If you were going to study law, this is something that I'd highly recommend that you watch. If you're fascinated in criminology, and in this most complicated of cases, this is also a show for you. Each episode is 42 minutes long, and I found each one to be absolutely engrossing, fascinating, riveting, and frankly, better than even some fictional drama could ever create. Sometimes you sit back and actually reflect and say to yourself, I cannot believe this is all real. It almost does play out like a scripted drama, but it was all true. And OJ 25 covers this trial absolutely perfectly, covering every inch in detail, but never letting your mind wander. From gavel to gavel, OJ 25 is a scintillating, detailed, meticulous documentary series covering every facet of the most complicated trial of the century. OJ 25 gets a 9.5 out of 10.